What's in the box?
Not until you give me the
What's
gun.
in the fucking box? No! No! You tell me.
What's in the box?
We are speed and professionals in aeromatics.
Welcome back, Rotary Nerds. Well, we were done with the car show. I didn't get to put up a whole lot of video. I wanted to go through and interview a couple of the really cool cars that they had down there. I didn't have a chance. I was talking to so many people. Hopefully you guys had a chance to go down there. If you were local, we got to chat or you got to see the car. I know that my voice was gone by the end of the day, so and I had probably one too many soda pops while I was there. But it was a great event. Definitely can't wait to be able to go there next year. Might not be able to bring the car. Maybe we'll bring something that we built and a customer's car, something like that in the future. Try to keep things, active and fresh and be able to keep everybody entertained there. Something new. But today's kind of special. So now that we're kind of getting back into the swing of car builds, things of that nature, we're going to bring you guys some content of some car builds, motors that I do in my spare time to help people out, customer projects that they have that they are wanting to be able to do, even if it's just buying some parts from some of the vendors that I use, just to be able to help consult and be able to build some cool stuff. So behind me, I actually was just over at a local shop that I had a motor shipped to. So let's check that out and I'll go through a build that we're going to be doing that's pretty cool and unique. So let's get to it. So if you know that you can buy REW engines still, the third generation FD motors, and this motor is actually going to be in an FC. So this is actually a brand new Mazda OEM REW. Yeah. So in order to make this work in an FC, we have a different mount kit. We have a different flywheel, lightweight flywheel, counterweight, and clutch. We're also going to be using a Mazda OEM Dizzy out of a 12A because this guy is going to be temporarily carbureted for the person that's going to be using it until they can update to an aftermarket ECU and turbo kit. But to get it in the car, we're basically just going to be running this guy carbureted, MSD ignition, Weber ID carburetor, all that kind of good jazz for the meantime. But we're going to set this thing up to be able to drop into an FC. So that's what we're going to be doing here today. So I'm super excited for the gentleman that is getting this motor. I know that he had a 1989 Mazda RX-7 second gen that the motor was just completely trashed, really not even any usable parts. It's kind of a bummer. I mean, it happens. One of the biggest things that I see tearing apart these cars is people that have an engine failure or an issue back in, late 90s, early 2000s, and then the car just goes and it sits in a barn for 10 or 15 years. And if it had a coolant failure or something like a bearing failure, something that basically affected, or they just store the engine improperly, they get water inside of the actual combustion area, and because it's cast iron and the rotors are cast iron, it just eats away at the rotors and the end plates that are cast iron, even can start pitting into the aluminum rotor housings, and they just totally get destroyed. Not even really any usable parts that come out of those motors when they get that bad. So if you have any old RX-7 that is your barn find, you're like, oh, the motor's bad, but we're gonna rebuild it, and it's been sitting for 15 or 20 years, get that sucker out of there and tear it down to see if you have usable parts, because you don't want to be in this type of situation where you want to rebuild an existing motor that you have and then find out I have no usable parts, what do? You can buy a brand new block for right around, shipped to the door, $5,800 from Mazda REW that's already ready to either make some boost. I mean, you don't want to turn them all the way up, but you can make some reliable power off these engines right out of the box. So just a little tip out there, if you have a RX-7 that's been sitting forever and it's got a bad motor, take it out, see what's inside of it. Don't count on having any good parts until you know. And once you know, you know. All right, so we got the engine out of the crate. I took the flywheel off. Just wanted to kind of just go through just the quality of one of these brand new motors. Obviously it's, 93 to 96 that we have here in the US that you can get with the RX-7s, right? So for an FD. So you can still buy one of these production motors from Mazda and get one with everything brand new, all new hardware, new eccentric shaft, new rotors, new cast irons, rotor housings. I mean, everything on here it's just perfect. It's great to have this as an option for people that are out there. So on this one, this is actually going to go into an FC RX-7. So I'm going to change out the front cover. With that, we're going to pop the oil pan off, and then we're going to put on the FC front cover, and then see what modifications that we're going to need to do to the oil pan to basically stitch that in to make sure that that's going to be able to work, and then throw on our Angel Motorsports engine mount to be able to go into the FC. Basically, it's an REW engine mount that basically adapts to be able to fit in an FC. So we'll pop that guy on, and then we'll give this to the new owner of it, and then he can throw it in his FC, and we're gonna... All right, so I got the motor kind of disassembled partially, the oil pan off, flywheel, all that stuff. I took off the front cover for the REW so that I could put on the 89 to 91 front cover, and now I'm just basically kind of going through and checking timing marks. Obviously for a FD, the front pulley is a V-belt, a ribbed belt, and we want to do a V-belt for this setup so that we can keep the OEM 89 to 91 water pump housing, all the accessories, alternator, power steering, all that stuff. Keep that all happy, and then the pulley from FD, the REW factory front pulley for the pickups used to be like a Hall effect or a magnetic pickup, and it's 20 degrees advanced, 20 degrees before top dead center, sorry, when it fires. So we want to mark this to be at 0. So what I use is a Racing Beat aluminum single rib V-belt pulley. Literally, I bought it only to be able to time 0 degrees on motors that I build, so I know exactly where 0 is. So when I time the car, when I put in an aftermarket ECU, I can see what that is. So I'll show you guys kind of like what I'm doing here. We'll run through just some of the changes to be able to make this as easy of a conversion into this car, switching from an REW engine into an FC. So that swap, we'll go over that right now. So after I took the oil pan off, basically just go through, clean everything, make sure it's all good. But this is the front cover off the 89 to 91 on the REW. Really the only big difference is we have this extra hole location here that we're not using on here. But yeah, to get into, and the reason why we're using this is so that we can actually have a Dizzy pickup for basically a carbureted ignition. And then later on in life, he can switch that carbureted ignition to a Mazda OEM cast sensor when we go to a Heltec, and then he can use this front cover for that as well. So it's going to be a multi-purpose, a little bit easier to use this front cover anyway, and I do like the way that that looks, just personally. So anyways, like I was saying, the Racing Beat pulley, it's just a single rib aluminum pulley, the cheapest one that they have. But the nice thing is it's got 3 timing marks. We have 0 degrees, we have 12.5 degrees, and then we have 25 degrees. So through here we can see exactly where we're at on our timing mark at 0 degrees. So when I take this pulley off and then I put on his pulley, I can mark exactly where that 0 is so that we can time this motor absolutely perfect right off the get-go. So otherwise, just put on some block-off plates. So for the oil metering pump, this one, it's already ready for a turbo drain as well later on in the future when we actually put a single turbo on this motor. And then just the rear block off plate for the, because it did run sequential turbos before, so that rear turbo that was on the OEM motor, we just blocked that off as well. We aren't going to be running oil metering anymore, so these are going to get blocked off, and then we're going to get some injector dummy bungs here, and then just block that off. And we'll use a Racing Beat IDA Delordo or IDA Weber downdraft carburetor on this guy. So it'll be a pretty sweet little setup. I mean, it's not going to be anything crazy. Probably like 180 to the tire. Maybe 200, I don't know. We'll see what we actually get out of it. I can't remember what those make. I think it was like 180 at the tire, maybe about 200 at the crank with the Weber carburetor on there. So we'll get going a little bit further. Oh yeah, and then the other thing, so oil pan. Big differences here, obviously, with the REW front cover. They kind of come in and come down and then come down on this corner here, as you can see on that oil pan there. So we'll add a little bit of material on this side there and then re-drill those holes. So we'll have to just basically just replate this section right here so that it bolts up and has this pattern instead. Pretty easy modification to a brand new steel oil pan. So we'll just clean that guy up, have a buddy weld that, and then it can go right back on to here, and then that oil pan will work in our FC. So very easy swap. The motor mount kit from Angel Motorsports makes it pretty easy as well. So that basically just bolts right on, and then we get the factory OEM location mounts for where it's going to bolt into the FC subframe. I did go with polyurethane bushings for the motor mounts, and then obviously the hardware. So yeah, pretty straightforward setup. Once I get it further along, the only thing I won't be able to do tonight is going to be the oil pan modification, but I'll kind of get it mocked up as to what it's going to look like. So as we do the oil pan, and I'm waiting to get that welded, let's take a look at the actual front pulley timing marks. So I did mark these. So these are the OEM marks. You can see here and there. So that's your leading and trailing timing mark. So this mark here is actually the 0 mark off of the Racing Beat pulley. This is the 12.5 and then the 25 degree before TDC. So these are those 3 marks, but just crazy to see here as to the OEM mark compared to what you actually have for the 0 degrees. So always check your timing marks on your pulleys, just as a FYI, especially if you're doing EFI. Never trust the OEM marks. So going forward, just take a look at that. If you have an actual Racing Beat pulley or something that gives you the exact 0 degrees, always recommended to just double check your timing marks before you actually put these things under power, because that can also be one of the causes that a lot of people see from detonation. They always say, oh, you know, I had, the motor was just tuned, everything was good, no issues, and then all of a sudden it started detonating or I lost compression. Well, a lot of that can be caused because you're 2 to 3 degrees off the entire power band. When you think you're 0 locked, you're actually not. You're actually at about probably 2 to 3 degrees advanced. So just FYI for all you guys out there. But let's get to welding this oil pan right now. Basically, we're ready to graft in the bolt pattern for the 89 to 91 front cover on the REW oil pan. So to be able to have these bolts be able to go all the way around. So what I've done is I just basically took that 89 to 91 oil pan, I just cut off the front half, and then I just started trimming. So I always, you know, cut heavy, and then basically just making sure that all my holes align. Obviously, stick this guy on. So the OEM REW pan hasn't been cut yet, but you can see that fits not too bad. It's actually very good for just basically grafting in the bolt pattern for this front cover. So a little bit more cutting to do. All right, so we've done our cutting on the REW pan, so no turning back now. That's all trimmed off. Still have to clean up a little bit of the edges here. As you can see, I still have the line. Basically, I left the line everywhere around, just so I knew exactly where it was, and I can grind that stuff off pretty easy. It's thinner steel, so, but yeah. So I also went ahead and sandblasted this guy, and all of our bolt holes now all line up through, so we're good there as we come all the way across. But yeah, it looks good. At this point, I'm probably not going to grind off anymore, and we're basically just going to kind of clean it up, just fit the very edge corners to the REW pan, and then have it. And we are all done graphing in the 89 to 91 front cover bolt pattern onto the REW oil pan. Everything there is looking good. Even put on the Angel Motorsports REW to FC mount kit. Everything's looking good there. Went with the polyurethane motor mounts for both sides. So we got some poly mounts, so hopefully not too crazy on vibration, won't be that solid. Really happy with how that all turned out. Threw on a little bit of the epoxy VHT black enamel paint. So with that paint, hopefully no issues there. Really shines, super happy with how that turned out. Now we're looking to just throw the clutch on this guy. Got everything timed, put the Dizzy on, brand new rebuilt Dizzy cap. Everything's timed out at 0 degrees for this guy, so we just throw the carburetor on it. Once the carburetor IDA is on there, this thing's going to be ready to fire. So let's throw the clutch on, the ACT and the flywheel with the lightweight, it's got the lightweight flywheel and counterweight there. So we'll get that on there, and then it's going back in the box. All right, and this is it. So the motor is all done, ready to go back in the box. Turned out great. I mean, to go into an FC chassis and just go NA for right now, I feel like we're pretty much well set up. Great, solid REW swap setup.
Well, what a great weekend that it's been. Motor's back at the individual's house that has the REW swap, ready for his FC. Ready to go back in, actually, and super stoked for him, as well as like ongoing, right? This is going to be a project for him that's going to last a long time. The motor, absolutely solid for him to be able to swap it into his car. Super stoked for him as he starts off with his rotary adventure, a fellow rotary nerd, as well as every rotary engine or car that I build gets a hat. So he got his hat. Hopefully he's going to be repping that guy. If anybody else wants some merch, let me know. Just shoot me a message. I'll hook you guys up. But it was a great weekend. Just a fun build to be able to just kind of show you guys what all that we do. Not just obviously drag race the Mazda RX-7 convertible in the back, but we also, I like to build cars. I enjoy doing it. I enjoy the people that are around me. So if you like this content and you want to see more of it, please like, subscribe. Tell me in the comments what else that you guys want to see us build. What can we put a rotary engine in? What cars do you guys want to see on the channel? Do we want to see FD builds? Do we want to see some V-mount setups? Some big horsepower street cars? I'll do it. I'm totally down. But I want to know from you guys what you guys think. Hopefully you guys like this video and share it with your friends. We'll catch you guys next time. Check you later.